It's been 1 year since Lorcana first hit store shelves, and we're consistently getting a new set of cards every 3 months. As we approach the second year of the game, a lot of players are starting to wonder if we will ever see set rotation, or will all of our cards be legal until the end of time. So in this video, I'm going to go over what set rotation is, the pros and cons of it, how other games handle it, and whether or not we'll see it in Lorcana anytime soon. Let's get into it. So first things first, what is set rotation? For those of you that are new to TCGs, you might think that every card from every era of a game is available to play, but that's not necessarily the case. While yes, there are games like Yu-Gi-Oh!, which for the most part outside of their banned and restricted list, has decades of cards available for you to play legally, but most other games don't work this way. Magic the Gathering, for instance, rotates cards out of the standard meta on a yearly basis. The format Standard in Magic the Gathering only uses the previous 2 years worth of cards at any given time, which means a lot of cards that you buy end up becoming useless in that format after a certain amount of time. However, Magic combats this by having multiple formats of play like Legacy, Modern, and Commander, where the legal card pool is much larger. So the older cards in your collection don't necessarily become worthless. Another game that rotates their sets is Pokemon, arguably the biggest card game in the world. They also have a standard format where cards are regularly rotated out, and another format called Extended, where cards from any era are legal as long as they are not on the ban list. I am simplifying this down a lot since the issue can get much more complex than this, so we're not really going to talk about erratas or separate ban lists per format or anything, just what set rotation is at a basic level. So now that we know what set rotation is, why might it be a good idea for card games to do this? Well, the first thing to note is that it keeps the game from getting stale. Every year or so, lots of cards are rotated out, meaning they aren't playable anymore, which means the meta is essentially refreshed without power creeping the game for the most part. It also forces you to create new decks using new cards to try new things and to keep the game feeling fresh and interesting for players into the future. And to make sure you keep buying cards, of course, but that's only part of it. Set rotation can also combat power creep, which is when the overall power of cards keeps increasing over time so that people are incentivized to buy new cards and not play with their old ones at all. Power creep can be very bad for a game long term, since people start to feel like their old cards are objectively worse than what's new, and it can make people stop playing the game altogether. The game can become stagnant and boring if you are consistently playing with the same cards all the time, which is why set rotation can feel very refreshing. It also means that cards that feel objectively like the best thing to play in a specific deck will only be around for so long, making way for new toys to play with. Alright, so now let's talk about what's bad about set rotation, and one of the first things that comes to mind is that some of your cards just can't be played anymore, which I realize I brought up in the positives, but it's also sort of a negative. If you're a more casual player who doesn't have a lot of pocket money, this can feel terrible. Your cards are special, they have memories associated with them, you have favorites, and making them literally unplayable in a large part of the game can feel really bad. Which is why most games that have set rotation also have additional formats. Lorcana at the moment only really has one format, but I'm saving that discussion for a future video, so stick around for that. It's also not great for new players who might not know about set rotations when they show up to play the game at an event for the first time. A rotating format also feels limited in terms of deck building opportunities, whereas before you had years and years of cards available for you to craft really unique decks, you now only have about 2 years or so worth of cards to play with. Set rotation can also push people out of the game, since it means they have to invest in a lot of new cards to keep up. And for more casual players, that can be a lot to ask. So do I think that Lorcana will ever get set rotation? While a lot of players don't like the concept at all, you can't argue that it does help with the overall longevity of games. Magic and Pokemon have been running for decades and continue to be incredibly successful. While games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Are still fairly successful, there has been a dip in its popularity over the years since the game has seen some pretty significant power creep, and games like One Piece continue to siphon away some of that audience. I think that if Lorcana wanted to have set rotation, they would need to implement some kind of core set or reprint set once a year or once every 2 years, whenever they decide to do it. That way only certain cards are rotated out and older cards more established players already own can continue to be used. Magic used to do this for a while with their core sets, but have since dropped that. Pokemon sort of has this in effect, where staple trainer and item cards are often reprinted so that the older cards players have can continue to be used for years down the road. If Ravensburger does decide to rotate sets, I think we'll need some additional game formats to go along with it. Again, I'll talk more about Lorcana and gameplay formats in a future video, so stay tuned for that. I don't really know if I want set rotation in Lorcana just yet. We're only a year into the game, and I think even after next year it might not yet be warranted. But so far the company has been making some really good choices regarding the game, so I have faith they'll land on something we'll ultimately like for the most part. But then again, you can't please everyone. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below how you feel about set rotation and if you could see it ever coming to Lorcana. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Sorcerer's Hat for more Lorcana videos. I post a brand new video every Friday. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye bye. Love you.